Let's talk about our shared vision for the future. What is it? What's it like? What are these drivers? Let me highlight 3 of them. The first is the vision put forth by the Ohio 21st Century Transportation Task Force. 60 citizen leaders from around and throughout Ohio came together, including stellar members from the Cleveland region. Our vice chair was your mayor, Frank Jackson, Albert Ratner, Joe Calabrese of RTA, Donna McNamee of Lake Tran, Bob Brown, treasurer of Case Western Reserve, David Beach from the Cleveland Natural History Museum, Brian Newbacher, who I know is here today, George Palco is here today from Great Lakes Construction, and Roseanne DeLeon from Cleveland Port Authority. They, among these 60 leaders, worked together, and their work ethic inspired me as I watched them work, because this was not an ODOT activity. We supported them. This was the People's Task Force. These visionaries worked together for 7 months, some of them meeting weekly, to listen to presentations and success stories from around the country and around the world about critical decisions and initiatives that resulted in successful economic growth and revitalized cities and population growth and the kind of change that we all want to happen here. What task force members learned, and what we know to be true no matter the location, is that transportation investment equals economic growth. Transportation investment changes the appeal of a region. In our urban areas, it makes our center cities the places to be for people and business and industry. In our rural regions, transportation means our farmers can get their products to market. It means that the citizens can get to critical medical facilities like the Cleveland Clinic. As we look at our state as a whole, both urban and rural, we need together to create a vision that belongs to all of us, that inspires us and brings us together. The second driver of growth is a commitment to safer and greener transportation choices for Ohio citizens and businesses. We've already got fabulous transportation assets, but they must be fully developed and effectively used. They must become one system, an efficient multimodal system that gives travelers and shippers meaningful and safe options. As a true Department of Transportation, we have a responsibility to pursue all types of transportation investment, investing in all modes of moving people and freight, to undergird the economic vitality and competitiveness of business, industry, community, and all the citizens of Ohio. A third driver of our future success will be a commitment to finding the resources to build and sustain our essential multimodal transportation system, which will be one of the keys to Ohio's competitiveness. Today, ODOT is investing, overseeing, and monitoring more than $1.1 billion in transportation stimulus investments alone, made available to Ohio through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And more than dollars, these transportation investments are about building things that are important and that last. Projects that put people to work with wages that enable them to support their families and help their children go to college. Some people criticize our investments, especially the stimulus. You read those articles. We're just not fast enough. We're not creating enough jobs fast enough. Maybe we haven't put them in the right place or building the right things. But I'm here to give you information about things that I want you personally to know. And these are all things that I can back up with reams of material for anybody who wants that. I want you to know that by September 1st, in the short amount of time since the enactment of the Recovery Act, ODOT will have awarded over $390 million in construction contracts for work on 180 411 construction projects. That represents more than 50% of the department's direct stimulus allocation. I want you to know that of the 213 transportation infrastructure projects prioritized for stimulus funding by ODOT, 90% of them are in economically distressed counties in Ohio. I also want you to know that when you combine the stimulus with ODOT's regular construction formula fund program, Ohio's investment in construction over this biennium will be the largest by more than a third of any time in the history of our state. And in fact, early next year, we estimate that there will be active contracts. Now that means some that started some time ago and are being completed, of over $5 billion in construction and transportation infrastructure investment in Ohio. But let me be very clear. During this time of unprecedented investment, we cannot think about transportation investment the way we would have even a year ago. The governor said it clearly a week ago when he stood here and said, "Yesterday's solutions are not sufficient to deal with the challenges of today and tomorrow." To take the greatest advantage of this historic time, state transportation departments need partners. And I am looking at all of you and all your networks that you have. We need public and private partners to help us position this state to create jobs, promote economic development, and create the Ohio of the future. We need the private sector to bring forward projects that we can work on together, development-based projects that will result in economic and population growth, retained and new jobs. Just as ODOT is in the development business, we are asking the Cleveland business community to fully engage with us in Ohio's transportation business. Let me spend a few minutes on Cleveland and the kind of future transportation and the kind of investment that is going on right now. We are making historic levels of investment into every mode of our multimodal transportation system in every region of the state. We're investing in railroads, waterports, transit and buses, aviation, interstates, local roads, bridges, walkways, and bikeways, all to bring jobs to Ohioans and spark the recovery of our economy. Focusing now right here on the Cleveland area and the northeastern part of Ohio. First, stimulus dollars. I'm happy to announce today the start of the region's newest project funded by the Recovery Act, a nearly $9 million project to modernize and resurface 4.5 miles of Interstate 271 between Wilson Mills Road and Interstate 90. The project spans both Cuyahoga and Lake counties and is the fifth phase in a series of 5 projects which began in 2006 to modernize I-271, that mainline corridor between Summit, Cuyahoga County line, and I-90. More than 75 individuals will be working on this job during the milling and paving operations. The majority of the work will actually be completed this year, with nearly $500,000 worth of work being done by minority businesses. Let's talk about Olmsted Falls. They also recently began a stimulus project with the start of construction on an underpass on State Route 252 or Columbia Road beneath the railroad tracks in the city. This nearly $8 million in stimulus funds will go into this job. And by now, I hope that each of you had the chance to see the Time magazine article earlier this month about the Recovery Act, which featured a picture of Ohio's first transportation stimulus project, with crews working on upgrading the ramp from I-490 to I-77.